you kind of fast forward to today, and it's like, yeah, I think there was a lot of investment trying to grow and pull in. Like, how can we pull these people in? And those people are like, we're fine where we are, man. Like, I just want to play on my phone or on my tablet or however you play games. Like, I just want to play Steam games. And so I think essentially, like, in my mind, is like that was a huge overreach, and really gaming for its core, whether you define it as AAA or indie or however you're consuming it, like just look at the overall sales and consoles. 100 million consoles is an incredible feat, but we've never seen a 200 million console. Like, I think overall, the market for these kind of games is still, relatively the same size that it has been generation over generation. And that in and of itself, I think, is one of the reasons why you're seeing lots of challenge with, people kind of being smart with their budgets. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this.
Well, there's that, but also like access. I don't have to have a dedicated gaming console to play most games, right? I can stream them to my phone. I can have just a PC, not even a high-end PC, and I can play most things, Like, I think access is the big differentiator, and that's probably why we won't see, gaming hardware encroach any much further than it is right now. I mean, you see how fast the Switch 2 is selling. That might be the exception, right? Like, maybe. But I think as costs go up and everything just kind of converges on, if Nintendo's the only place I can play Mario, then yes, obviously that's going to be why I buy a Nintendo. Mm-hmm. But as far as everything else, which makes up the majority of the industry, like, it's becoming platform agnostic. Slowly, Sony is slowly doing it, but Xbox has already made that jump. Obviously, PCs are getting more to where they can sit in the living room. We're looking at the new Steam machine coming out, I guess, later this year. Who knows? With their delay and everything, that it's the shift in access, and I think that's maybe a lot of our kind of old school style thinking, where we look at the hardware sales and go, okay, well that's going to affect like what games sell well, or which what's available. But it really doesn't matter anymore. You can have a AAA experience on a phone. Now, I wouldn't say the controls would be that good, but visually, it would be the same.
A lot of games support those controllers that you clamp your phone into it,
right? Know? Well, yeah, that's Apple Arcade. A stipulation for being on Apple Arcade is supporting hardware controls, which is wild to me. Like that, why would they enforce that unless they saw a way that Apple TVs and MacBooks and everything can run all the same games?
Well, if you really think about it, you could take your iPhone and you put it in one of those controllers, and now you have a Steam Deck.
Right.
I mean, you literally do. You just install Moonlight on it, and there you go. Stream games from your computer. Play Apple Arcade games. Play Resident Evil 4 remake. Like, literally, you could do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. So I think the move from Microsoft making their next console a PC and basically just dropping out of the console war, while it's fun for me to clown on them because I don't like Microsoft that much, I think it's probably the most intelligent thing they've done in like 12 years. So yeah.
Yeah, I was sorry.
Yeah, when Scrag was talking about games like Mugenics and others, I think that's another reason the Blue Point thing is sort of frustrating. Is we keep hearing about these mushrooming budgets and operational costs, and I've speculated you could start seeing AAA studios play smaller bets, like do 2 projects, AA in size and scope, but they're AAA in quality. You have all that institutional knowledge and all those tools, and so the quality can be there, but you're not risking as much, like what we've seen with the budget size of something like Spider-Man 2. I'm looking at Blue Point, I'm like, man, they could have been such a lean studio to do all sorts of things. Maybe have them assist with the God of War trilogy remake, maybe have them assist with just support, or a steady cadence of remakes. There is the possibility, because they did indicate really early on, around the time they were acquired, that there was something they were making that was like new or their own thing. There is the possibility that they brought that to the table and it just wasn't good enough, or maybe they couldn't hit certain quality gates. because Herman Hulse did indicate they were going to have, it was either him or Hiroki Totoki, somebody indicated that like Sony was going to have more quality checks to make sure their games were ready. And we know last year, Naughty Dog did like 7 weeks of forced overtime to get a demo ready for PlayStation. And then they stopped doing the forced overtime. It made headlines because everybody was like, oh, crunch culture is back. And it's like, this was, I think, a unique situation. But what I do think it indicates is PlayStation's probably saying, hey, let us see what you got, because we're having to buckle down on finances and we need to know that your projects are viable. And maybe Blue Point just couldn't bring anything worthwhile to the table, or maybe they missed the deadline, or maybe what they brought to the table was like, this is probably 4 or 5 years away. That means you guys are going to have a revenue driving shipment for a decade, you know, the 6 years since they did the Demon Souls remake, and then maybe another 4 for whatever they're making. That's a decade. That's a long time to just be paying to keep a studio open. So I understand it from that perspective, but it's like, as small as they are, and as we're seeing lean projects just explode, whether it's Expedition 33, Yote's budget was very small.
Mhm.
Like, come on, we've got to get to a place where studios like this can be seen as they're a valuable asset. You have all that talent and all those people. Find something for them to do, because it couldn't have been that expensive to keep them open comparatively to like the budget costs of something like what Insomniac's doing with, you know, probably Wolverine.
And also too, like that kind of studio, like a remake studio, you know, like for a fact they're not calling the shots. It's Sony going, hey, you're working on this next. Like if you look at the list of their games, you know, it's pretty clear that like they're not the ones deciding what they're working on. So them getting shut down or them not quote unquote doing anything for 6 years doesn't really sound like it's their fault per se.
Right. It seems like you couldn't find anything for them to do at all. Like anything.
Well, no, they've been supporting other games and such.
Sure.
The problem with that theory, though, Scrag, is the timeline doesn't line up. They weren't owned until after Demon Souls remake, so all the stuff they were doing before, they weren't owned by Sony yet. So I don't know if that's true. Like I've been pretty much told Sony doesn't mandate to the studios; they kind of let them pick and choose what they want to work on. So like they did like the Shadow of the Colossus, Uncharted Legacy, and then Demon Souls remake. Like after Demon Souls remake, they were acquired. So I don't know if there's actually a history to justify this idea that like PlayStation was like, do this, do this, do this. They clearly didn't have something worthwhile. That's why they're getting shut down. But I don't know if we could say they were being forced to do any of that.